Hello, Rosa Parks Elementary School, Mr. Johnston's classroom. How are you guys? This is Joyce DiDonato, and I am coming to you, not exactly live, but I'm recording this in Milan, Italy. I don't know if any of you guys have been to Italy yet, but I hope each and every one of you get the chance to go someday because it's pretty amazing here. You have taken a lot of time to write me some questions, really good questions actually, and I'm going to try and go through them and get to all of them if I can, if there's enough time. But I appreciate it a lot. I love the fact that you guys are curious about the world of opera and music and art. I just think it's fabulous. I actually wanted to be a music teacher growing up, so I could have been Mr. Johnston for you guys, but my place was, at least for the time being, was on stage. So this is where I am coming to you from. I'm going to get straight away to the questions, and I just apologize right off the bat if I happen to mispronounce any names. It's nothing personal. But you know, names are personal, and sometimes you have your own way of pronouncing it, so I'll do my best. First question comes from Janae, and she asks, Dear Miss DiDonato, who is the person you most admire? Hard question. A lot of these are good questions. You know, in my recent, like the last year that I've been working, I did an opera called Dead Man Walking, and I met the real-life person who I was portraying in the opera, Sister Helen Prejean. And she works pretty tirelessly and pretty courageously to fight injustice in the world. And I have to say, I admire her quite a lot. It takes a lot of courage. She goes against the current a lot of time. But in a bigger spectrum, I have to say anybody that follows their heart and anybody that tries to make their little corner of the world a better place, which is also pretty courageous sometimes, but it's a pretty beautiful thing to do. I admire that. Next question is from Sarah. What inspired you to sing, and at what age? You know, I don't know exactly how old you guys are, but you know, from the time I was 8 or 9, maybe even 5, all the way through, I used to stand in front of the mirror with a hairbrush and pretend I was singing into a microphone. I'd sing along with all my music and all that, and then I got into choir. And I loved being a part of a big group. I loved being a part of something bigger than myself. And I loved the theater, the lights and the costumes and the stories and the music and all of that. And I just sort of, one thing led to the next. And I ended up sort of here today in Milan on stage. A lot of hard work in the meantime, but it was something that I've always loved. And it's always been a part of my blood. Music is something I always had to do. So I followed my heart on that one. So this looks like Haley. She says, does your personality have to change on stage? If so, how do you do it? You know, my personality is always Joyce, for better or for worse. The thing about going onto stage is you get to pretend. You get to act for a while. This is the art of acting. I'm portraying a different person. So I have to imagine what it's like to step into those shoes. I've played people that are crazy. I've played people that are younger than me. I've even played boys, believe it or not. I do a lot of different variety of things. And it gives me a chance to escape for a little while. I think there's always an element of myself that remains in the character. So let's say, for example, I am playing Rosina in the Barber of Seville. There's Joyce DiDonato's Rosina, and then there's Cecilia Bartoli's Rosina, or Jennifer Laharmore, or these people. And the character Rosina is always the same as Rossini wrote, but each of us brings our own little personality into it as well. So it ends up being sort of a good mixture, hopefully. Cheryl says, do you have any kids? And if so, do they have your talents? Do you get to take them with you when you travel to perform? I do not have children, but I have about 10 nieces and nephews that I love pretty greatly. And they're equally horrified and equally proud that their aunt is an opera singer. And I sometimes will have them come to shows if I can. They're in school and they're busy, but I try to do that. There are a lot of opera singers that do have children, and they have a wide variety of talent, not just for music, but for sports and reading and writing and all different kinds of stuff. So it's a pretty colorful world. that if you're a child born into this opera world, it's a pretty colorful world that you come into. Then Mary asks, I've been wondering, how do opera writers ask you to be in their operas? Do they come to you in person or do they call and ask you? It's a mixture. When I get a phone call every once in a while from a composer that says, I want you to sing some music of mine, it's a pretty exciting moment. Sometimes they'll just send me music in the mail, and I have to find the time to go through it when I can. Sometimes it's also you sit down with a composer and maybe you're having dinner together and an idea is born. And you think, wouldn't it be pretty cool if we told this story or if we tried that? And I may have one of those sort of in the cooking pot right now, which is very exciting because it's really fun to go into a piece that nobody's heard before. You know, you come to the Barber of Seville, a lot of people in the audience have heard it before, so they know what's going on. A new work is completely different. Okay, now this is a tricky name. If I say it with an Italian accent, it's Citlali. Citlali? I'm not sure, but it's a beautiful name regardless. I just know I'm not pronouncing it right. What is the hardest thing about being an opera singer, and how old were you when you started? Well, same thing. Music has always been a part of my life. The hardest thing, my gosh, there's a million hard things. I have to learn how to speak other languages. I have to stand up in front of 3,000, sometimes 5,000 people, sometimes hundreds of thousands on these HD movie casts from the Met. Whether I'm nervous or whether I've had a good day or a bad day or whether I have a little cold or not, I still have to sing. I still have to get up and do my job, and that can be challenging sometimes. I'm also always away from home. I'm never home. Right now, I'm renting this apartment. It's lovely, but it's not mine. And I'm only here for about 2 months, and then I move on to the next place. So that gets a little hard. But what it does is it teaches me to make the most of every place where I am, to really connect with the people where I am, and to try and be happy and make the most of the moment here and now. So that ends up being a good thing. Sebastian asks me, how do I memorize my script? And how do I sing with hardly ever taking a breath? It's a good question. That's, you know, I look at singers like we're athletes. You know, you marvel at the Olympics and you watch these people and they're doing these incredible feats. You think, how do they jump that high? How do they run that fast? How do we sing so much? Well, it's training, and we have to build our bodies, tolerance, and build it up, the physicality and the breath support to do it. We take a lot of time to really train and get it better and better and better. And sometimes when I'm tired, it becomes a lot harder to keep everything in with minimal breathing or with the best breath control that I have. But I really look at my body as an instrument and as an athlete, so I have to just train all the time. And memorizing a script is really hard because, you know, we do stuff in different languages. If it's, like, for example, I speak Italian and French now, so that's a little bit easier for me to memorize. But German's really hard. And it takes me weeks and weeks to spend a lot of time, months actually, to spend time with the score and then to concentrate on memorizing. It can take me weeks at a time. Zarine. This almost sounds like a French name. Zarine is how I would pronounce it. I hope it's right. In Italian, it would be Zarine. So she says, I know that you've been in many operas and you've been in many costumes, but you must simply tell me which is your favorite costume. That's really hard to say. Sometimes it's when I'm playing a boy and I get to just be in like shorts and flat gym shoes. That's really comfortable. It's not very glamorous, and we like the glamorous side of opera too. I think my favorite costume has been, I wore it in two different times, was the green and pink costume in the Barber of Seville in London. And the first time I was standing up and singing it the whole time, and the second time is when I fell and I broke my leg on stage and I had to do the rest of the run in a wheelchair. And the great thing is, the designer never intended this when he designed the costume, but sitting in the wheelchair, you could see all these pink ruffles underneath the green skirt that he had designed, and it was awesome, and it was so fun to play with and move, and it felt very girly and very fresh. And the cool thing on the design, the pattern of the costume, if any of you guys want to be fashion designers, he picked a material where it was embedded with roses all throughout it. So not everybody from the audience could see it, but when I put it on, being Rosina and the roses, I thought, you know, this is definitely the right costume for me. Tatiana, you know, that's a beautiful name. You're in an opera, Midsummer Night's Dream. I don't know if you knew that. A couple of questions. Do you get nervous or have stage fright? Yes. I get really excited and sometimes I get nervous, and that's when I have to breathe, breathe, breathe. How old were you when I first started doing opera? I was about 22 and I was in the chorus, Die Fledermaus, in my college. And favorite city to go to when I'm out of town? I love them all. I'm in Milan. I get to eat gelato all the time and pasta and pizza. I walk a lot, so that helps me fit into the costumes. I love Paris. I love London. I love New York. San Francisco is a great town. Barcelona, Madrid, Tokyo was really cool. I'm going to South America next year. I can't wait to see some cities there that I've never been to. Maybe learn how to tango while I'm there. So I get to meet all kinds of people. I get to eat all different kinds of food. I get to see all different kinds of architecture. And I get to smell the smells of different cities and figure out how the market works in Barcelona versus Paris. And they don't want you to touch the fruits and vegetables here, but you can there. And it's really great. And the coolest thing that I find through all of this travel is that people are really cool everywhere. Sometimes you think, oh, I don't know about the French, or I don't know about the Italians, or I'm scared about this. People are cool everywhere. Okay. Elena! I love your name! Do you know the next opera I'm doing here is La Donna del Lago in Milan, and the main character that I'm playing is Elena. So you have to look it up. La Donna del Lago of Rossini, and her big aria is Tanti Affetti. It's on YouTube. You can find it. Have you ever forgotten your lines on stage? Yes. And it's really embarrassing, and you just keep going, and the trick is to act like nothing happened. And you just barrel on through, and you don't give it away to the audience that it happened. Diana says, how many languages have you had to learn as an opera singer? I speak Italian and French relatively well. I speak English. I speak a little bit of Spanish. But I've had to learn how to sing in some Russian, in a little bit of Czech, and in German. And I've had to sing in Spanish as well, which was hard because I didn't speak that so well. But it's great. I love the languages. It's awesome. If any of you want to be an opera singer, the best thing you can do right now is start learning your languages. Okay, now this is another name, Timeya. Timeya? Do you love being one of the world's greatest singers? That's really sweet. You know, the thing I love about it is I get to work with amazing colleagues, and I get to sing in some pretty fabulous theaters and for wonderful publics, and it's being kind of, you know, in the good theaters around the world and with some of the best conductors and best singers. I just find that it keeps me really challenged, and I have to keep learning and growing, and I have to keep getting better and working on what I do. And so I like that challenge. I like the fact that I've never done learning, which is really cool. And she also asks, did you love the opera when you were a kid? Don't tell anybody. I didn't really understand it. But I also I wasn't really exposed to it the way you guys can be today. I would listen to it on the radio with my dad, the Met broadcasts. But I was too interested in pop music. But something, when I came to it at about 20, 21 years old, I completely fell in love with it. And my world changed. And I got it. And I loved it. You guys are so lucky that you're starting way earlier than I was. Kelly says, who discovered you? Oh, everybody along the way. You know, my high school, I don't mean everybody in the world discovered me, but I had a really good elementary school music teacher. I had a really good high school music teacher. I had really good college teachers. And all along the way, they all encouraged me. And so it was a long, slow process. There wasn't one moment. There wasn't a Simon Cowell on American Idol that went and said, I think you're going to be a star. No, it was a lot of little people along the way. Little people being big people as well, but, you know, little steps along the way for me. And do you ever get tired or get a sore throat? All the time I get tired. I keep really busy, so I have to try and sleep while I can, and then sometimes I do get a sore throat, so I have to take really good care, because if this is bad, I can't sing. Sarah, what gave you the idea to be an opera singer? I loved it. I got on stage, and I could get some extra scholarship money if I sang in the opera, and the second I got on stage, I fell in love with it. And that was it for me. I didn't look back. So, and then erendira. I'm going to pronounce that sort of, maybe Spanish or sort of Italian. Erendira. I love it. It's beautiful. It's a good singing name. They're going to see the Barber of Seville and wants to know, some of these questions I've answered, but what's the hardest opera you've ever been in? I think right now I'm singing Rosa, and it's 4.5 hours and I'm on stage all the time, and I have to do comedy and tragedy, and I'm a young guy, but at one point I dress up as a girl, but I'm still a guy, even though I'm a girl. So it's really complicated and fabulous and funny and heartbreaking and amazing, and I love it. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoy the Barber of Seville. I think you really, really, really will. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of chaos and zanity happening in that house. I don't think zanity is a word, but I just made it up. So when something's zany, it's full of zanity. Listen, thank you guys so much for taking the time to write. I know this was kind of long. I hope it wasn't too boring, but your questions were so good, and I just love the fact that you're exploring the world of opera. Never be surprised about what you can find going on there. It's always pretty exciting. It can take you to really wonderful places in your heart, in your mind, in your soul. Yeah, that's why we do music. So I send a big, big, big hug to all of you guys. Keep up with your opera and be good to each other. Okay? Ciao, ciao.